Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast, you're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, patriots and preppers, I am Mack Worley III, and this is On the Move, the show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. As I've said before, this is not my show, this is your show, this is your grassroots activism movement. It's the On the Move movement. It cannot function without you, however, it is bigger than one man. I want to thank each and every one of you for your patriotism and for taking the time to get involved. With that said, thank you for tuning in. Today is going to be a really good show. Today is January 19th, 2014, and today we have an amazing show planned for you. We're going to be covering a lot of topics that have been in the news lately, and we're going to be talking about basically the recent jobs report that was released, and it had some disappointing numbers. We're going to talk about the Chris Christie and the bridge scandal thing that's happening right now. I'm sure you've heard in the news. Some of the recent reports that have been filed through the Supreme Court rulings. And I would like to talk about a book that's going to surprise you when you find out that it's rising to the top of this best-selling charts. We have a lot more on the topic list here. Hopefully we'll be able to get to it all. We'll also be taking your listener calls and reading emails. If you'd like to join the conversation today, please give us a call at 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at our new email address at talk@onthemoveshow.com. Again, that's talk@onthemoveshow.com. Don't forget to check us out at onthemoveshow.com, here at blogtalkradio.com/onthemoveshow, facebook.com/onthemoveshow, youtube.com/onthemoveshow, and twitter.com/onthemoveshow. You can also check out our stores at onthemoveshow.com by clicking shop on the homepage. And we have hundreds of products for sale on there, ranging from t-shirts to freeze-dried foods to books that I recommend reading to bumper stickers and so much more. Your purchases will help make On the Move bigger and better, and we really appreciate your support. So the very first thing I'd like to talk about here is the new network that we're trying to put together. It's all started from Jeff Norton, the Midnight Patriot. He's building this Patriot network. It's patriotfb.com, patriotfb.com. And it's just a place for us all to go, patriots to go, that we won't be worried about being censored by the government. We can all just kind of come together as a community, and this is one of the things that we need to worry about right now, is actually joining together, linking together with other like-minded patriots so that we can all work together to take our country back, get our country back on track. So this is something that I think that we should all be looking to. Everybody go to patriotfb.com right now, check it out, sign up. And send me a friend request. I'd really like to meet everybody on there and have conversations with you all. So one thing I like about it is that, with the fact that I'm going to be part of this network now, we're going to be broadcasting the same way. Everything's going to be the same. If you want, you can access the show through Blog Talk Radio like you're doing right now, or you can go to patriotfacebook.com, and at some point I'm going to be on the homepage there, and you can just click the link for the live feed, and you can listen to the show off of that. So there's going to be several different avenues that you can listen to the show. And another great part is there's a lot of other podcasts that are on there. There's the Midnight Patriot, and there's some other guys on there that are doing some other good things too. But you should definitely check them out and see what they have to offer. I like the fact that we're bringing everybody together, though, and we're networking, we're building a community. And everything you like about the show, it's going to stay the same, except two things are going to be different. The quality is going to be different, and you'll have another way to access the show with different links, different avenues. So I'll keep you updated on all the moves that are being made on this transition here. I'm going to update everybody on my Facebook, facebook.com/onthemoveshow. If you have any questions about what's going on with that, shoot me an email at talk@onthemoveshow.com, and I'll be more than happy to answer your guys' questions. So, if you didn't know, there was actually a gun rally today that was going on at all 50 states' capitals. If you went there, I would really love to hear from you. Please give us a call today. The number to the show is 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow. I want to hear how it went for you guys down there. I'd like to hear your thoughts on how it went, what it was like, how many people showed up, and so forth. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to the rally at the Capitol today because today's show, but I was with you in spirit. I wanted to be there, but at all the capitals here, I'm actually closer, even though I'm in Vancouver, Washington, I'm actually closer to the Capitol in Salem, Oregon. It's a little over an hour drive to get there. And the one in Olympia, it's about, I think it's an hour and 43 minutes, something like that. But anyway, I wanted to go, but I wasn't sure if I'd be able to go and get there and come back in time for the show. Plus, I had to prepare for the show and make sure I had everything ready for you guys. I actually considered playing a repeat on this show, just so I could go, but I wanted to be there and make sure that I'm reliably here for you guys, providing you new information, and I'm not just rehashing old stuff by playing an old clip. I'm trying to be here and steady here every week, you guys will know. And one thing also, I enjoy the conversations that I have with you guys on this show, and I didn't want to have to go 2 whole weeks without hearing from anybody. So, but anyway, so today, the first segment of the show is, as every day, every time we have the podcast, we do this segment first, is Today in History. According to WhiteHouseHistory.org, on January 19th, 1955, which is 59 years ago today, the very first presidential news conference was filmed for television with the permission of President Dwight D. Eisenhower. So, I actually have a clip here of his first initial remarks when he first arrived at the press conference. Here it is.
Well, I see we're trying a new experiment this morning. I hope it doesn't prove to be a disturbing influence.
Okay, one thing, the President Eisenhower, he came into the Indian Treaty Room. That's where they held the press conference, a room with poor acoustics and limited seating, and announced that the experiment they were about to be part of was, in fact, being put over the television. They're actually doing this for the first time in history. In fact, the television made an enormous difference in the significance of the press conference and the presidential publicity. It did have a disturbing influence in some ways, as far as creating a spectacle of the event, but it did actually help. Some presidents have made mistakes, though only rarely in these kind of publicity events. But the sessions also have been an enormous resource for the presidents as they seek to explain the policies and themselves to the public. Today it seems like an everyday occurrence. We don't really think about it when we see a presidential news conference. But back then it was unheard of before Eisenhower. Allowing the presidential news conference to be broadcast over television offered the American people a window into government. It gave us a way of seeing what we thought was behind the scenes, but now it's become part of the spectacle of politics. Nowadays, the presidential news conference is just another tool in the president's toolbox to convey his message and explain himself to the American people. This is just another example of how President Eisenhower was ahead of his time. This is the man that commanded our army and won World War II. He warned us about the military-industrial complex after the war during his presidency, and he even paved the way, pardon the pun, for our modern-day highway system that connects our states together, which allows our industry to thrive. Can you imagine if we didn't have a modern highway system? I mean, look at Europe. If these countries over there, they don't have, no country in the world has a highway system like ours where it's intertwined and connected, and we're able to easily get from point A to point B. Even if it's from the East Coast to the West Coast, we can get across the country. This wasn't possible without President Eisenhower. Keep that in mind. President Eisenhower actually started doing this based on his experiences when he was younger, trying to travel across the United States via Jeep. He basically had to go off-road. There were mudslides covering the dirt roads that were there. The quality of the roads were extremely poor, and because of this, Eisenhower commissioned the Eisenhower Highway, basically. So anyway, I thought this was something that was pretty cool, and I figured I'd mention it. With that, we're going to go ahead and cut to the favorite part of the show that I like, and it's called The Weekly Defender.
And now it's time for the Weekly Defender. You have the right to defend your life, the right to defend your family, and the right to defend your freedom.
All right, so this week's Weekly Defenders we have found on numerous sources. This is the segment of the show that we report about armed citizens in the news who have used their firearms to defend their family, their property, and or themselves. Our first Weekly Defender we found in the Shreveport Times. On January 6, 2014, 63-year-old LZ Pipkins was at her home in Shreveport, Louisiana, when an intruder armed with a shotgun forced his way inside the house. Once inside, the intruder ordered Pipkin's granddaughter to fill a bag with valuables while Pipkins begged the criminal to leave the money in her purse. Pipkin eventually led the intruder to a safe where she keeps some of the change and a handgun. Pipkins opened the safe and offered the change to the intruder, at which point the criminal took his hand off his shotgun, giving Pipkins an opportunity to retrieve the pistol from the safe and fire it at the robber. The home invader was struck in the chest and fled before collapsing a block away from Pipkin's home. Following the shooting, Pipkins made it clear she did not relish shooting the criminal, stating to a local news outlet, "Just $55 in coins, and he lost his life. Lord Jesus, I wish the young people today would just think, go to school, get an education and a good job, and buy what you want. Don't try to take from someone else who has worked all their life and still doesn't have nothing to give." Anyway, that's pretty crazy. Like I've said before, one thing that is actually true about firearms is that it is a great equalizer. Just because that woman was elderly and just because that person had a firearm, that didn't give him the advantage. With both people having a firearm, it allowed her to defend herself. And as we all know, criminals will always find a way to get a gun. Whether or not they're not allowed to have a gun or if there's a law preventing it, by definition, criminals do not follow the law and they will find a way to get a gun. So it's important that we allow our armed citizens, or our citizens, our law-abiding citizens, to be armed so that they can defend themselves. It's not just a matter of the government allowing them, it's a right. You have a right to defend yourself. Our next Weekly Defender we found on NBCnews.com. Here we go. A homeowner shot a burglary suspect in the groin after catching two men trying to steal scrap metal from his property, according to authorities. This one I had to put on there because it's awful, but it's kind of funny. This idiot tried to steal scrap metal from somebody, and he ended up getting shot in his groin. Unbelievable, Anyway, deputies said that the incident happened on December 20th at a home in Marshall County, Alabama. The homeowner told authorities that when he asked two men to leave, one of them came toward him and threatened to kill him. That's when the victim told deputies he shot the suspect in the groin with his rifle. So let me just paint this picture here. All right, there's two guys. They're stealing scrap metal. It doesn't say that they have any weapon, and they see this guy approaching them, the owner of the property, asking them to leave, and he's got a rifle in his hand. But then he comes at the guy, threatening to kill him. All right, I just think that's funny. This guy had it coming as far as I'm concerned. Both suspects managed to flee the scene. Deputies were able to locate and arrest 25-year-old Paul Curtis Reed and transported him to the Marshall County Jail. The injured suspect, 23-year-old Aaron Michael Lawson, this is the guy who got shot in the groin, was located at Huntsville Hospital getting treated for his wound. Lawson was arrested after having his surgery. Both Reed and Lawson were charged with first-degree theft and criminal trespassing. Anyway, I love personally hearing about how law-abiding citizens use their firearms to protect themselves. You have a right to defend your family. You have a right to defend your life, and you have a right to defend your freedom. We at On the Move support your rights. If you have a story about how you were lawfully defending yourself or a loved one or your property, we would love to hear you comment on either that or one of these stories, give us a call. We'd like to hear from you. The phone number is 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at our new email address, talk@onthemoveshow.com. Anyway, at this point, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break, and we will be back in about 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. I appreciate you all sticking with us. Okay, so today we have a lot of stuff on the agenda. We got a lot of stuff that we'd like to talk about here. One thing I'd like to also point out here, like I said earlier, if you guys would like to get more information about what we're doing, the things that we're up to here at the On the Move Show, please check us out at facebook.com/On the Move Show. Make sure you hit the like button there so you can get all the updates in your feed about everything that we're doing. Okay, so the next segment of the show, we've done this part before, and it's one of my favorite ones. I would say second to the Weekly Defender, but this next segment is called the Mack Attack.
It's time for the Mack Attack!
All right, in this segment of the show, I give you my take on outrageous events in the news, and if you'd like to join the conversation on these topics, please give us a call at 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. While I'm mentioning it, feel free to stop by onthemoveshow.com, and we have a lot of stuff on there. We got a store you can check out. Like I said, we got a lot of different things. I got my blog on there, some videos I do for my YouTube account. Check it out. Let us know what you have to say. Anyway, the first topic I'd like to bring up today is the disappointing December jobs numbers that came out. Apparently, we were projected to have at least 200,000 jobs that were supposed to be created for the month of December. This is supposed to be the best month out of the year for job creation because Christmas and other holidays creating seasonal jobs. You know, this is one thing that you see at this time of year. A lot of businesses need help with the demand from all the people that are going to be coming shopping at their store. Unfortunately, we only saw 74,000 jobs created in December. This is the lowest that we've seen in 3 years. Again, out of that 74,000, most of these are seasonal jobs, which means they're part-time and temporary. So with that in mind, those jobs, probably the majority of them, I would say the vast majority of those, are probably not even around anymore. Anyway, I have a clip here from, I think this is Fox News. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I have a clip here regarding the disappointing numbers for the December jobs.
I want to get to this, another Fox News alert this morning on some very disappointing numbers on the U.S. economy. Look at this. This is the number of new jobs that were added in the month of December, 74,000. That is a paltry number, the lowest that we've seen in 3 years. Welcome, everybody, on that sunny note on this Friday morning. Brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Martha McCallum.
I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning. We're still in it, aren't we?
Yeah.
We still are. A very weak ending for 2013, raising new questions about the job market and whether it can sustain recent gains. Labor Department reports this. Unemployment rate fell to 6.7%, but that drop occurred mostly because many Americans simply stopped looking for work.
1 in 5 American men not working, according to Stu Varney this morning. Our chief White House correspondent, Ed Henry, joins us live at the White House. So, Ed, it's pretty disappointing news. What is the response from where you are this morning?
Well, Martha, what they're saying here at the White House just in the last few moments is they're taking some positive note in the fact that this shows there's been positive job growth for 46 consecutive months. But as you noted, this job growth far below what the average was just per month last year, and far below expectations from this White House, from folks on Wall Street. So they know they have a problem here, especially because the president's kicking off this new year, getting ready for the State of the Union at the end of January, where he wanted it to be in the run-up to it and in the speech all about the economy, shifting away from the botched health care rollout somewhat and focusing on how it's starting to come back. In fact, just yesterday, the president was here at the White House saying this economy is coming back. Take a listen.
We've got to make sure this recovery, which is real, leaves nobody behind. And that's going to be my focus throughout the year. This is going to be a year of action.
So now, in fairness, what the president is saying there is he wants more action on the economy to make sure that the recovery stays strong. But when he just 24 hours ago was saying this recovery is real, and then this disappointing jobs number comes in, this is a problem for the White House.
Expectation was 200,000 jobs added, and only 74,000 was the real underlying number there. So what about the Republican reaction in Washington, Ed?
Look, Speaker John Boehner all this week has been pushing back on the White House effort to extend unemployment benefits for 3 months, saying, look, we want to help people, but rather than just continuing to put out benefits, you've got to find more ways to grow jobs, grow the economy. And so Speaker Boehner put out a statement a few moments ago saying this, quote, today's disappointing report shows once again that the president's policies are failing too many Americans, many of whom have simply stopped looking for work. He goes on to say there are more families living in poverty today than there were before the president took office. And instead of making it easier to find a good paying job, Washington has been more focused on making it less difficult to live without one. That's the Republican response from Speaker Boehner. And on your point about why the unemployment rate came down, people who have stopped looking for jobs, the percentage is now 62.8% in terms of people who are looking for work. That is a 36-year low. Gives you an idea of why that unemployment rate came down, Martha.
Stunning. Ed, thank you very much.
So that is the report there. One thing I'd like to point out is how the Obama administration has continually released expectations that were far above what we have seen and what we actually got. I'm holding right now in my hand a book written by Lian, and it's titled Leadership: The Barack Obama Way. Make Change Happen. All right, so I got this book for my wife for Christmas as a gag gift, and it was pretty hilarious watching her open it and see Obama's face on it. She wasn't happy with that, but anyway, now I'm reading it, and I'm actually I'm using it as a tool to basically find out what he thinks. And one of the things that I read in here is that Obama actually has a management philosophy, and one of the things that he actually says in the book is that you need to manage your expectations. You need to actually give people expectations that you can meet. So don't go promising things that you can't deliver, basically. And I find it very hilarious that he says things like, you know, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, period. You know, these are clearly expectations that he could not meet. On top of which, the expectations for the job report, how he said that the economy was growing and that things were getting better and that, you know, this was happening, that's happening, and we can see that our unemployment rate is lower, but it's really not matter. It doesn't really matter because that only reflects the people that are actively still looking to get employed again. So, you know, I find it kind of hilarious that he's breaking, you know, his own leadership philosophy. And one thing that I would also like to point out is that I got this book from the dollar store, okay? And I paid $1 for this book. And that was the only reason why I bought it, is because there's no way I would pay any more than $1 for a book about Obama's leadership philosophy, or lack thereof. Anyway, as I'm looking under the barcode that the dollar store has put over it, you can see it bleeding through, and it says USD $24.95. So this book was going for $24.95, and apparently nobody was buying it, and they shipped it off to the dollar store, and now they're selling it for $1. So they're literally losing out on almost $24, and I'm guessing that they're actually losing money selling this book for $1. I'm guessing they're paying us to take it off their hands. So I just thought I'd mention it. Apparently nobody's buying his leadership philosophy, and nobody is actually buying into what he's saying anymore. Again, that's not what the show's about today. I just thought I'd mention it. Anyway, Obamacare is one of the biggest killer of jobs in America. You know, we have it affecting our economy in such really drastic ways. I mean, it's affecting our businesses. It's causing all sorts of problems. I mean, when it makes sense, and from the beginning, it's comical, because I've had so many people that have told me, you know, what, are you able to predict the future? How do you know that it's going to kill jobs? How do you know that it's going to affect us in this negative way? Well, let's just look at what it does. All you have to do is look at what it does. First of all, it's dependent on young people who aren't sick joining a program and paying ridiculous amount of money for a plan that they're not going to be able to use because the deductible is far too high. They have like a $6,000 deductible in order to get any money out of this program. Well, when most of these people only visit the doctor maybe once or twice a year for a checkup, you know, in that situation, why would they join that? Why wouldn't they just take the tax, the penalty that they're having to pay for not having health care? And then if they get sick, they can't be rejected, so why would they join? And then on top of that, you have all these sick people that are joining, and they're using the program, and you know it's all being subsidized. Their cost is being subsidized by the young people that are on the program, because their amount of monthly payment for the insurance has to be more. It necessarily has to be more to subsidize the sick people. So it just doesn't make any sense why young people would join it. And we've seen now young people aren't joining Obamacare. Young people aren't buying into this thing, and it's causing a problem. Eventually, this is gonna create an issue where the Obamacare itself will have to basically crumble under its own weight. And we've had these politicians that have been talking to us about how, you know, we should just let it crumble under its own weight. In my opinion, I think that's the worst thing that we can do, and we need to fight to defund this program with every fiber of our being. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why we can't, for two really big reasons, why we can't just allow the program to crumble under its own weight. Because, number one, the program will not be allowed to crumble under its own weight. They will bail it out. They will switch to a single payer after these insurance companies go into bankruptcy and they're not able to do it anymore and they just disappear. Single payer will be the government providing your health care, and the government will be responsible. And you think honestly that they will let a government program, solely government controlled, that only has the government's hands in it, and they have so much power and influence over your life, and I mean so much control? Do you really think that they'll allow this program to go? No, they won't. They haven't allowed Medicare to go. They haven't allowed Medicaid. They haven't stopped Social Security, even though it's so far in the red. There's no way that me or anyone from my generation will ever see any money from Social Security. But yet I'm still having to pay for it. You're still having to pay for it if you're within my generation. Obviously, they will never let this program crumble. So any Republican that you hear saying we need to let the program fall under its own weight is asking for this program to be moved into a single-payer program and to never, ever go away. This program will be with us forever if we don't fight to defund it and get rid of it. Not just let it crumble, but get rid of it. Yes, people will see how bad the program is. Yes, people will not want to have this kind of health care. Yes, we will have death panels that will go up against, and people will be, your fate will be decided by bureaucrats, whether or not you can live or die, whether or not you have the merit to have this surgery, whether or not you can have that transplant. bureaucrats will decide this. Nobody's going to want this, but the problem is it's already there, and a program that's already there is extremely difficult to get rid of, even if it's full of corruption, fraud, waste, abuse, even if the government can't handle it and they mismanage it, even if people are dying, this program will stick around unless we fight to get rid of it. We can't just let things happen and hope that it will go away on its own, because that's not the way things work. More importantly, and the second reason why we have to fight to get rid of Obamacare, are you really influenced by a politician who doesn't want to fight for anything, who just wants to let things work out on themselves, and maybe they'll go away, maybe they won't, hopefully they'll crumble under their own weight because they're bad policies, but he doesn't want to actually take a stand and fight against that? Are you motivated to get out to vote for that politician? More importantly, are you motivated to talk to other people about that politician and why they should get out to vote for that person? I'm not. I'm sure you're not. We need to actually do what Ronald Reagan said in regards to the bold colors, the bold color difference that we need to have to be different from the Democrats. Nobody wants Democrat light. We need to actually get out and be that change, be that difference, the real difference between the parties. Show where we stand in contrast to where the Democrats, socialists, communists, Marxists, where they all stand. Show where we differ and actually fight for our beliefs. And if we don't have the actual gumption to fight for our beliefs, then what are we doing? What do we stand for? Are we just Democrat light? Are we, this is why people don't go out to vote when they can't see a difference between the politicians. When they feel like it doesn't matter who they vote for, those politicians will still screw them in the end. This is why we're losing. Republicans are losing elections. I'm a conservative libertarian. I just like to put that out there. I'm not a Republican. I sometimes have voted for Republicans, and in the future, I'm not sure. Depending on the candidate, I may or may not vote Republican. I would vote for a Democrat if I thought that they would actually be better for the country, if they would hold individual liberty to the highest priority, and stop trying to impose the government will and spreading big government. I would be a fan of that Democrat, but no Democrat like that exists. So I'm forced to either vote Libertarian or vote Republican or one of these other third parties that are out there. But anyway, I have a clip here from Ronald Reagan. He's talking about the bold color difference, and he can say it much better than I ever could, so I'll just go ahead and let him talk.
In spite of all our greatness, our people feel a sense once again, or a desire to feel a sense of greatness, a sense and a pride in their own capacity for performing great needs. We Republicans, I think, can do something about this, but not if we try to be all things to all people. There are some in our midst who've suggested that we should broaden our base, except that what they mean by broadening our base is to blur the image, to make us indistinguishable from the other party. Some have suggested that the 1974 election, the disastrous results, were an indictment of what we stand for. Well, may I suggest that the meaning of the last election will not be found among those who voted. It will be found by polling those who stayed home, the biggest non-voter bloc in our nation's history. And why did they stay home? Well, because they said they couldn't see any difference between the two parties. I think they're basically wrong, but I think this is also an indication of what our answer should be to those who would make us more like the opponents. I am a convert to Republicanism. I spent most of my adult life as a Democrat, and I can testify that when I found I could no longer follow the leadership of the Democratic Party, I became a Republican not because the parties were the same, but precisely because they were different. More than half of those who didn't vote, which party wins? Now some have taken another course. There are some among us, and I respect their views, who suggest that that means an end to the Republican Party, that we should form a new third party. May I suggest an alternative to that? Let's have a new first party, a Republican Party raising a banner of bold colors, no pale pastels, a banner instantly recognizable as standing for certain values which will not be compromised. Yes, we must broaden our base, but let's broaden it the way we did in 1972, because those Americans, Democrats and Independents and Republicans, are still out there looking for a banner around which to rally. And we have what they want, what they're seeking, but they don't know that. And sometimes I wonder if we know it. Young people, your own companions, I'm told, are registering either Democrat or Independent, avoiding us in overwhelming numbers. Well, is this because of what we represent or what they think we represent? I know that in a poll of 35,000 college and university students, 80% of them said they wanted more individual freedom, less interference by government in their private lives. Well, isn't that what we want? Our banner should also proclaim our faith in the marketplace as the greatest provider for our people, and that we will eliminate needless regulations and restrictions that keep the marketplace from being able to provide the jobs our people need. And on that subject, let us also proclaim compassion for those who, through no fault of their own, cannot provide for themselves. See that their needs are fully met. But at the same time, let us say that all those who are able-bodied will be given an opportunity to work for their welfare grants. We will not make them lifetime recipients of a dole as clients of an ever-growing welfare bureaucracy. We must extend our compassion to that great group of unsung heroes, the working men and women of this country who ask nothing of government but to be left alone. They make the whole system work, but for a long time they haven't been fairly represented in government. Today they see themselves falling further and further behind, unable to afford the good life they've earned and deserve. Political demagogues for the last 4 decades have been appealing to the worst in it, the cupidity and selfishness of human nature. They've been telling us that each one of us can have a bigger slice of pie, but we have to help them take it away from someone else who's getting too big a share. Well, I think it's time for us to tell those political demagogues we can all have a bigger slice of pie if government will get out of the way and let the free enterprise system bake a bigger pie. James Burnham has said that even the most skillful surgeon, when operating on a Democratic politician, cannot separate demagogic from solid tissue without causing the death of the patient. Can anyone say that the banner that I've presented so far does not represent what has been typical Republican philosophy, but does it not also represent what the people of this country, in an overwhelming majority, desire for themselves and the country today? Our party must stand for the traditional belief in a federation of sovereign states, of local autonomy and individual freedom. We didn't seek on the world scene the leadership that has been thrust upon us, but we can't abdicate that leadership without advocating our ability to keep the peace. We have seen in recent months little men with little minds in Washington tarnish our shield and rob us of credibility throughout the world. Make it plain to every friend and foe alike, every nation, that we will join any in seeking peace, but we will keep our commitments and we will not give away freedom not ours to give, nor will we sacrifice our own freedom. We will indeed sacrifice to maintain that freedom and peace throughout the world. One last line I think we have room for on our banner. Let us add a line that says, as a pledge, that never again will young Americans be asked to fight and die for their country unless the goal is victory. Thank you very much.
So that was Ronald Reagan. Man, if that speech doesn't resonate with you based on what's happening today, then you're just not paying attention. I really do love going back and listening to Ronald Reagan's speeches. Man, that guy, he really did have just, such good opinions on government and the way that the government should influence policy. There is some things that I disagree with him on in regards to his war on drugs that he started. That was his program. But, as far as getting out of the way, the government getting out of the way of free enterprise so that everyone can have a bigger piece of the pie, because the government's not there with their handout, taking everything from everybody. If everyone could be better off without the government. And just think, and I've said it before, and I know I'm going to say it again, everything that the government has, they have stolen from someone some American, every dollar that they have taken out of your pocket, either actually taken through taxes or as a hidden tax. They've devalued the dollar. So in doing that, they have actually taken your money. They have taken away from you. Can you imagine if the government wasn't doing this, how much more prosperous we would all be? In my opinion, we would be a heck of a lot better off without the government having this much effect on our businesses and our industries. I mean, just look at what's going on with Obamacare. Again, we'll go back to Obamacare. Obamacare now, if an employer has employees that are working more than 30 hours, 30 or more hours, they're considered full-time. And with that full-time status, that employer is now required to provide health care benefits for them, according to Obamacare. So, with that, and that's the employer mandate that Obama has unconstitutionally decided to not enforce, even though it's still there, it's still on the bill, it's still required of employers to do. You're not required to, because President Obama wove, or I don't know what the past tense of that is, waved his magic wand and said that we don't have to actually enforce that. You don't have to cover your employees. But I'm not talking about that right now. What I'm saying is that the mandate now, if you have employees that are working more than 30 hours, what are these employers going to do? I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what the reaction is. People, you do something and people react. That for every action there's a reaction. And I've been saying this. I've been shouting this from the rooftop about what will happen. And I have Democrats or liberals who are telling me, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know that these people are going to react this way. What are you able to predict the future? You have no idea. Just let it take its effect and see what happens. Well, we're seeing what's happened. Obamacare is the #1 killer of jobs. These employers are turning these people's full-time jobs into part-time jobs because they can't afford to pay for their health insurance, so they take them below 30 hours. They're also employers that have 50 or more employees. They're required to pay for their employees' health care coverage too. So what are they doing? They're firing people and getting below 49. There's a new group of people now of employers called the 49ers, and it's businesses that have employees that are at 49 because they won't go to 50 because they'll have to start paying for health care for all these people. It's not, like I said, it's not really that hard to figure out what will happen. It's not hard for me to figure out that, I'm going to pay $6,000 a year in deductibles and a crap load of money in premiums for my insurance, and I'm not going to see anything until after that point. I'm not going to see any benefit of this program. And if I'm not sick and I don't go to the doctor a lot, I'm not going to really benefit from this. So why would I, as a young person, sign up for Obamacare? I'm not, which is why young people aren't doing it. Right now, we have 1 in 5 American men out of work. 1 in 5. We have a 6% unemployment rating in America, but that number is so far from being accurate, it is ridiculous. It does not reflect the people who have been unemployed for so long that they've given up looking for work. And this is not just me saying this. According to Wall Street Journal, the Wall Street Journal, over 90 million Americans are not working today. America's population is 330 million. Let me just say that again. 330 million people are in America today, and 90 million of those 330 million are not working. That's almost 29% of Americans out of work. That's 3 out of 10. If you can't see how negative the government is impacting our economy, you are not paying attention. It's unbelievable. I would like to hear what you guys have to say. Give us a call. The number to the show is 619-924-0986, 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at onthemoveshow@gmail.com and give us your take on it. At this point, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in about 1:30.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. All right, when we last left, we were talking about Obamacare and how it's killing jobs and how 90 million Americans are out of work. I was also talking about the disappointing job numbers that we had in December. But we're going to go ahead and move forward here and move to the next topic. If you have been following the news lately, then I am positive that you could not help but hear about the controversy surrounding New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. I'm calling this controversy Bridgepocalypse 2014. Apparently, a lane was closed down on the George Washington Bridge in New Jersey. This is the busiest bridge in the world, apparently. It's come out that the bridge was closed down in order to punish a local mayor for not supporting Chris Christie in his election for governor. It was political retribution. And this was supposedly not committed by Chris Christie, but it was members of his staff. Governor Christie has denied any and all involvement and says that he thought it was closed for a traffic study. He's fired members of his staff and gave a 2-hour press conference to answer all the questions that the press had. And here's his 2-hour press conference right now. No, I'm joking. I'm not going to play the whole thing. Anyway, no members of the Republican Party have come out to support him during this process. I think that they're all afraid of getting caught up in this controversy. It's kind of like that... like the drowning man thing, where they're flailing around and people are terrified to come near him because they're afraid he's going to take them down with them. So it's funny to me, because if this was the Democrats that this happened to, they would all be rallying around this person and like insulating them and all of that. But in my opinion, I don't think that this will really do much to derail Governor Christie's run for the 2016 presidential campaign. And I'll tell you why. I'm pretty sure that the media will continue to bring this up again and again and again, but ultimately I don't think it will have that much effect on him. I think the public has a very short memory on things, and yes, this will be brought up in the actual campaign time, and he'll be slandered on that and all that, and he very well may have had something to do with it. They found emails that were from the staff to other members of the staff saying it's time for some traffic, traffic jams, like they were causing it on purpose. But there's been nothing so far to link it to Christie. I think that the media will continue to smear Christie, and they'll make it seem like conservatives are heartless and cold and that they don't care about people. They'll ignore the fact that most conservatives don't align themselves with Chris Christie. A lot of conservatives consider him to be a rhino, which, by the way, rhino is the term that we use. It's called Republican in name only. And I was watching Mike Huckabee, his show, the other day, and it made me kind of chuckle. It gave me a little laugh. I don't have a clip from it, but I'm going to go ahead and just tell you what happened. He was saying how he didn't like the word rhino and how he thought it was a disparaging term, and how could somebody tell that they're a better conservative than another person? That means that you corner the market on conservatism. That was his argument, basically. And we should stop using the word rhino. Well, in my opinion, those words sound an awful lot like what a rhino would say. To me, it just seems like, first of all, he is a rhino. He is not a conservative at all. And it has nothing to do with one man's opinion or people's opinion. There is a set line in the sand where you are conservative if you do these things, if you believe in these things. And you are not conservative if you don't, if you go against those, or if you compromise. And here's my thing, okay? Right now we have the lowest congressional rating with the public than we've ever had in history. All right, our Congress is handpicked, voted by the people, and yet they have the lowest approval rating that they've ever had ever, and it just keeps getting worse. So why is that? You control who you put in office. So if you don't like who you put in the office, why do you keep putting these incumbents back in office over and over and over again? Pay a freaking attention. If you don't like what they represent and what they're doing to our country, then why do you keep putting them back in the office? Anyway, these rhinos, all right, they are not Republicans. They may be a Republican in name only, but they tend to lean more towards Democrats. You know, we need to have a line in the sand. We need to actually be able to pick out who is a progressive. There are progressives infiltrating the Republican Party right now, and we need to get them out. We need to clean house. And like I said, these are the people that won't fight for you. These are the people that are not inspiring. These are the people that are part of the Republican establishment, and all they want to do is get reelected. And they're not trying to fight for you. They don't even care about you. They don't care because they know that even if they have a low and a horrible approval rating, you're not paying attention. You're not going to vote them out of office because if you would, or if you were going to, you would have already done that by now. They have like less than a 23% approval rating in Congress. How are any of them in there? If you were really paying attention, they wouldn't be, and they know that. That's why they don't like us calling them rhinos. They don't like us actually drawing the line in the sand and saying, if you're on this side, you're with us. If you're on that side, you're with them. We need to have those bold colors. It's severely important. We need to expand our base, and we need to actually spread out there. But I think we do that with less government and more individual freedom and more conservatism than progressivism, because progressivism actually restricts progress. Anyway, I think that this will actually continue to damage the controversy with Christie, the bridge apocalypse. I think this will continue to damage the conservative brand, but I don't think it's going to have hardly any impact at all on Christie's presidential run. And I know that these people are, like Hillary Clinton, they're terrified of Christie. They think he's a moderate that has some support between both sides. But you know what? I don't think that Christie has a shot. I honestly don't. I'm not voting for Christie, and I hope that you don't. If it comes down to Christie or Hillary, I'm voting Libertarian. I'm not wasting another vote. I am so tired of voting for people that I find out after the fact just plain stink. I mean, they stink on ice. I voted for Romney, and he's not a conservative. I will never do that again. I will not do that again. We'd still be in the same exact same exact situation that we are right now if we had Romney in office. I truly believe that. Romney brought us Romneycare. It's no different than Obamacare. I mean, we don't need the government to tell us how to have our healthcare system run. In my opinion, we would still be having the same problems. Now, you may disagree with me on that, and if you do, I'd like to hear from you. The phone number is 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. Anyway, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and play a quick clip here from, let's see, Judge Janine on the Brig Apocalypse. She reported on Fox News about the situation, and here's her report.
I hate traffic, and I hate traffic jams. I hate them because they slow me down. Slow is not my speed. But what I hate even more is the hypocrisy of the Obama administration, especially when it comes to justice. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Janine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. Slow, however, would be the Obama administration speed. It was 1 year and 4 months ago that 4 Americans, including our ambassador, were massacred in Benghazi. Weeks later, the FBI shows up to investigate a trampled crime scene. Now, I don't know about you, but I still haven't seen anyone prosecuted or even in custody. But President Obama is going to get to the bottom of it.
We will not waver in our commitment to see that justice is done for this terrible act, and make no mistake, justice will be done.
8 months ago, we find out the Internal Revenue Service is targeting the president's political opponents in the midst of a close presidential election. Accountability was supposed to be swift and certain.
If, in fact, IRS personnel engaged in the kind of practices that have been reported on and were intentionally targeting conservative groups, then that's outrageous. And there's no place for it. They have to be held fully accountable.
Right. I know criminal justice, and I would expect the FBI to be the agency investigating the IRS. But then I would be wrong. Take a listen to what Robert Mueller, the then head of the FBI, had to say.
Can you tell me how many agents, investigators you've assigned to the case?
May be able to do that, but I'd have to get back to you.
Can you tell me who the lead investigator is?
Off the top of my head, no.
This is the most important issue in front of the country the last 6 weeks. You don't know who's heading up the case? Who the lead investigator is?
At this juncture, no, I do not know.
So we have 4 Americans murdered, countless other Americans targeted by the IRS for their political beliefs. No special prosecutor, no investigation, no one even questioned. Enter Chris Christie and the George Washington Bridge.
I didn't know about it, but it's my responsibility because I'm the governor. I found this out at 8:50 yesterday morning. By 9 o'clock this morning, Bridget Kelly was fired. By 7 o'clock yesterday evening, Bill Stepien was asked to leave my organization. That's pretty swift action.
Kind of refreshing, isn't it? A chief executive having at least the balls to get out there, face the music, hold people accountable, fire them, apologize, and take responsibility. Now, I don't take a position with respect to this so-called scandal, which, by the way, has garnered more coverage by the left than Benghazi and the IRS combined. Time will tell. But what I do know is that Chris Christie has presented more cases to federal grand juries than your average politician. My point? There is no way he's going to put himself on the line without being absolutely certain of his non-involvement. But here's the shocker. Within 24 hours of Chris Christie's statement, the Obama administration, known for its love of slow speed, sixed the United States Attorney in New Jersey on Chris Christie by starting a federal criminal probe. Really? Benghazi, 4 dead. Nothing. The IRS violating the constitutional rights of Americans, IRS employees taking the fifth, nothing. And don't tell me that a traffic jam, as annoying as it might be, comes anywhere near the massacre in Benghazi or the IRS scandal. Mr. President, you're kidding, right? There's a saying that justice is blind, but it must be swift and certain. You who promised to give us the most transparent administration in history and a level playing field, and yet your appointee investigates a traffic jam as a federal criminal probe in less than 24 hours? But it gets worse, folks. Paul Fishman, the United States Attorney in New Jersey, trumpets his investigation. Now, folks, I was the chief law enforcement officer in my county for years, and I've worked with the feds, shared resources with the feds, and have even been investigated by the feds. I know their MO. They do not confirm nor deny investigations. Their mantra is that they are so objective and so nonpartisan that they would never implicate someone before an indictment. I guess the rules are different, though, in the Obama administration, as Mr. Fishman trumpets his investigation of a potential presidential candidate from the opposing party over a bridge lane closure. Really? And by the way, Mr. Fishman has a long history of donating to the Democratic Party and in 6 years has contributed more than $12,000. And this week, the administration says that they've begun that IRS investigation. The only problem? The new director of the FBI, James Comey, doesn't even know who the prosecutor is who's running the investigation. And her name only surfaced after lawyers for the IRS victims claimed the FBI was dragging its feet, their clients not even questioned. Miraculously, the next day we find out who this mystery person is. Is it a special prosecutor appointed by the Attorney General? No. Is it someone well known for rising above politics? No. But then again, why would Eric Holder appoint a special prosecutor who might look at him for perjuring himself a few times in front of Congress? So who is this person? She's contributed more than $6,000 to President Obama's campaigns on a salary of $150,000 a year. Barbara Bosserman, an avowed political supporter of Obama, now heads up the Justice Department probe of political targeting in the IRS, which could only implicate the Obama administration. So when asked about the absurdity of this appointment and her loyalties to the president, Eric Holder's office says it would have been inappropriate for us to take her political leanings into account. You're kidding, right? You don't think this is a conflict of interest? That it gives the appearance of impropriety? That it causes the public to lose faith in our system of justice? But hey, at least there's good news on the Benghazi front. Just yesterday, our State Department said Al-Qaeda was not involved. Now there's a shock. First, it couldn't be Al-Qaeda because they were on the run. And then it couldn't be Al-Qaeda because it was that video. And then it couldn't be Al-Qaeda because it was a spontaneous demonstration. And now, a year and 4 months later, we find out that it's not Al-Qaeda. How about you tell me something I don't know? So here we are. Prosecutorial resources directed not against the killers of Americans or the violators of the Constitution, but instead against this Democratic administration's political rival. I have been a long-time prosecutor, and I have spent my career in the assignment of blame, making those who violate the law responsible and accountable. I know the role of a prosecutor. It is not a political one. The role of a prosecutor is to do justice. He or she may prosecute with vigor, and while he or she may strike hard blows, he or she is not at liberty to strike foul ones. Justice cannot be fueled by partisan presidential politics. Shame on you, Mr. President.
Okay, so, we see this double standard of how the media is covering this scandal, this bridge apocalypse that's happening, that happened, and yet they ignore Benghazi, IRS, Fast and Furious, and the NSA spying scandal. They don't want to talk about the failures of this administration. They would much rather talk about how conservatives are evil and they don't care about you and they're heartless. And that's because the media is a liberal media with a huge bias against conservatives. This has all been part of a plan to infiltrate and convert the media, Hollywood, all these important influencing organizations to basically make it so that people hear it over and over and over and over again and pound it in your head. The Republicans don't care about you, and they're just looking out for big business and things like that. But at the same time, they simultaneously ignore the murder of our people in Benghazi and the lack of investigation, basically, and the lack of caring that they had in regards to what was happening in Benghazi. We had people that were stationed so close that could have came, and they were waiting for orders to come help, but no orders came. No one came to help them. We have people in the IRS that are pleading the fifth who need to be telling us what's going on with this, but they're pleading the fifth, meaning they don't want to incriminate themselves, which means that they have something that may possibly incriminate themselves. Well, if everything was on the up and up and they were really looking out for us, they would actually try to do something and get the ball rolling on the IRS investigation. We know that it's fact that conservative groups, patriot groups were targeted. Yes, progressive groups were targeted as well, but not nearly as many conservative groups. And since then, and this is unprecedented, since then, no conservative group at that time period had received that 503 status or 501c3, something like that. I can't remember the status, the tax-exempt status from the IRS. None of them, not one. That's never happened in history. And we're supposed to believe that there was no IRS targeting. It came out of the Washington, D.C. IRS office to the Cincinnati office. And we're supposed to believe that the White House had nothing to do with that. The White House didn't know anything about it. Okay. Well, what about Fast and Furious? Oh, you don't know about Fast and Furious? Let me tell you. Fast and Furious, that we were shipping guns at ATF. ATF, it happens to be under the jurisdiction of Attorney General Eric Holder. Attorney General Eric Holder runs the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau, okay? So these guys are the ones who were walking guns across the border into Mexican drug cartel hands. They knew it was happening. They were trying to say that it was a way that they would track the guns and find out where these guns are going. That way that they could, get these people who are shipping the guns to them. So after they already found out all the information they needed, they continued to let it happen for months and months and months. And then these guns that, like they knew were happening, ending up in the Mexican drug cartel hands. One of these guns was found at the murder scene of Border Agent Brian Terry. He died because of one of these guns. And we're supposed to believe that Attorney General Eric Holder didn't know anything about this program that was going on, and the other operations that were going on in regards to that too. We're supposed to believe that he didn't know anything about it, and that his orders didn't come down from the White House as well. Also, the NSA spying that has been going on, they claim that they have been taking our metadata from our phone. The metadata is supposedly just who you called, it's stuff like that, when you called, it's basically like that. And they're trying to say that that's all that they received. Well, first of all, I don't believe that, because the courts are secretive. The courts, the FISA court is totally secret. We don't know what rulings are happening in there, and we don't know what's legitimate. They've been lying to us about the existence of this program from the beginning. So you don't think that they would lie that they're only getting the metadata? Of course they're lying. They're getting everything that you do, every human interaction, every digital human interaction whatsoever, your phone calls, your emails, your text messages. They have the ability to listen to your phone when it's off. They can pop in on your little camera on your phone and see what's going on in your house. They can look in your web camera, and all this can be activated while the electronics are off and no light pops on, letting you know that you're being recorded. They have so many different programs that are so far beyond our technological comprehension right now that we don't even know what's going on. And I know I'm sounding like a paranoid, conspiracy theorist here, but some of these are just conspiracy facts. All right. Regardless, they have been spying on us and telling us that they know what's best for us and that they can protect us, and that if they had this capability, they may have possibly been able to stop events like 9/11. Oh, really? You could stop events like 9/11? Okay. Well, if that was the case, why didn't you stop the Boston bombing? No answer. Really? Okay. Well, that's because you don't care to stop the Boston bombing. You don't care to stop events like 9/11. And why don't you care? The reason is because it allows you to get everyone riled up again and expand the federal government, expand your powers. This is why the NSA is not spying on you to protect you. They're spying on you to protect their interests. They're turning innocent people into criminals for speaking out against this. According to the Patriot Act, it's now against the law for these companies that are being forced to let the NSA in through a back door into their stuff. These companies aren't even allowed. It is a felony for them to tell people what is going on. Even if they're asked a direct question, they have to lie. They're required by law to lie to you. This is not the America that I thought I was growing up in. This is not what our founding fathers would have wanted, and I'm quite positive of that. Anyway, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
All right, we're back. When we last left, we were talking about the NSA spying and how they are not looking out for your interests. Okay, this leads us to our next topic today. The courts have been very, very busy lately. They've been making findings on all sorts of things. One of them is NSA spying. Another one, the First Amendment protection of the press. And another one that we're going to talk about is marriage rights in Utah. So, the Supreme Court's ruling on the NSA spying. According to consortiumnews.com, the government has admitted it collects metadata for all of our phone communications, but says the data collected does not include the content of the calls. So they're trying to tell you that they're not listening to your phone calls. Even though they have the ability, they're not. Just trust them. Take their word for it. In response to lawsuits challenging the constitutionality of the program, 2 federal judges issued dueling opinions about whether it violates the Fourth Amendment's prohibition on unreasonable searches and seizures. U.S. District Judge Richard Leon of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia held that the metadata program probably constitutes an unconstitutional search and seizure. Well, that in my opinion, that's pretty obvious because you need some sort of probable cause, or reasonable suspicion that you've committed a crime. But they are just broadly scraping all this data and collecting it and putting it into a database to be checked later. They're not even checking it all at once. They're just scraping it all off of there and throwing it into this big data mining center in Utah. So, with that in mind, obviously it's unconstitutional. I don't understand how Judge Richard Leon could say it probably constitutes an unconstitutional search and seizure. In order to be searched and have something seized, like metadata, you have to be suspected of committing a crime. They have to have reasonable suspicion that you've committed a crime. And in doing this, they're just scraping every American's information out there with no presumption that they have committed a crime, no expectation that they have. They know that these people, the majority of them, are innocent, and they're doing it anyway. They don't care. Judge William H. Pauley III of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York determined that it does not violate the Fourth Amendment. Oh, big surprise there. We got a New York judge saying that it doesn't violate the Fourth Amendment. So, I'm guessing this guy is a screaming liberal, progressive, communist, socialist, Marxist. But, that's no real big surprise because he comes from New York. So, they keep putting people, in the courts over there and in office that are, the most politically aggressive liberals that you can possibly find. But yeah, obviously we're going to have a conflicting opinion from a judge in New York. So this is going to continue to be worked out. This is going to be something that we're going to continue to hear in the news over and over again. And down the line it's going to come out. I am confident, but I'm really confident that this is going to end up being worked out and proven that these people have violated the Constitution, the Fourth Amendment right of all of us, and not even just us, because it's not just the Fourth Amendment right. All right, the Fourth Amendment, it didn't give us anything. The government did not give us these rights. We have these rights. These are inherent rights. They're human rights. So when they do this to people overseas, and I know it's hard to have, to feel sorry for somebody that is overseas and worry about their rights when we have threats on our country. But you know what? There's always going to be a threat. There's always going to be barbarians at the gates. And, we can't be xenophobic. We can't just hide in our little bubble and expect that nothing's going to happen. And I understand the need for security, but we need probable cause. If we don't have any reason to suspect that these foreigners have committed a crime or that they're a threat to us in any way or our national security, we can't just scrape all their information as well and capture everybody's communications. It's just wrong. If you can't see that that's wrong, you're not thinking about it in a constitutional context. And again, the Constitution is not just our protection. It's not. It doesn't give us Americans these rights. It enumerates natural rights. It enumerates rights that exist. It doesn't tell us that now we have these rights. It says we hold these rights to be self-evident. So all men and women, it doesn't matter where you're from, all men and women have these rights. Obama held a press conference on Friday, January 17, 2014, where he discussed the NSA spy program. Obama defended the constitutionality of the mass surveillance program. He actually compared the NSA spying on electronic human communications to the Sons of Liberty spy program back in the Washington days, back in the Revolutionary days, when we spied on the occupying British. He also mentioned the spy programs that were used during the Civil War and World War II. So let's follow that analogy. Let's just get into Obama's head here and see what he was thinking. Okay, we're spying on enemies, and that was okay, so it should be good, right? Well, following that analogy, it sounds like to me that he's calling the American people an enemy to the government. Here's a clip. If you don't believe me, listen to President Obama in his own words, and you decide.
Have a seat. At the dawn of our republic, a small secret surveillance committee born out of the Sons of Liberty was established in Boston. And the group's members included Paul Revere. At night, they would patrol the streets, reporting back any signs that the British were preparing raids against America's early patriots. Throughout American history, intelligence has helped secure our country and our freedoms. In the Civil War, Union balloons, reconnaissance tracked the size of Confederate armies by counting the number of campfires. In World War II, code breakers gave us insights into Japanese war plans. And when Patton marched across Europe, intercepted communications helped save the lives of his troops. After the war, the rise of the Iron Curtain and nuclear weapons only increased the need for sustained intelligence gathering. And so, in the early days of the Cold War, President Truman created the National Security Agency, or NSA, to give us insights into the Soviet bloc and provide our leaders with information they needed to confront aggression and avert catastrophe.
So he's comparing how they used those things, the spy program, to spy on enemies. All right, here's the big difference between those analogies that he just mentioned and what we're seeing today. Everything he just named was during a war and used against an enemy. These people keep trying to justify their actions. They say that everything that they're doing is lawful because they passed laws and created secret courts that allow it. Well, you know what else was lawful? Everything Hitler did. Every single act that Hitler did was lawful. Do you know why? Because he passed laws and created secret courts that allowed it. So yeah, nothing is illegal that's going on. Everything is unconstitutional because this is not a country based on laws. This is a country based on a constitution. That's the law of the land. It doesn't matter what the government passes. It doesn't matter what laws they say that we can and can't do things. If it's unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional, and it doesn't matter who we put in office. The Constitution, as Mark Levin always says, is not up for election. It's not. It doesn't matter how many liberals are in the office. The Constitution cannot be changed unless we go through the actual process, the amendment process. And you know, the liberals, the progressives, communists, socialists, Marxists, they don't want to go through the amendment process. And why is that? Because they'll have to put their plan out there and have it be, actually scrutinized by the public, and the people will see what they're trying to do. The only time that they're interested in actually amending the Constitution is during times when there is really heightened passion and people are afraid, and they do it that way because that way is the only way that they can slide things through. They try to be the man on the white horse that our founding fathers were fearful it would actually come out there, and actually people would just be willing to give them their liberties, give it up, because people sometimes crave that kind of security of knowing that they'll be safe and protected, and they'll sacrifice their liberty to gain security. And that's a quote from Ben Franklin. Those who would sacrifice liberty to gain security deserve neither and will lose both. Look at your history, people, and I'm not just talking about American history. I'm talking about world history. We see this with Hitler. We saw this with basically every dictator that's gained power throughout history. They've used these kind of tactics of getting people passionate or fired up about something, using fear and manipulation, and then came the hammer. People didn't see it coming. Here's a clip of Dianne Feinstein on Meet the Press defending the NSA program, and that she talks on there with, I think it's the director of the NSA or something like that. But anyway, here's a clip. This was from Meet the Press on January 19, 2014.
And we're back now to the debate over government spying. I spoke with the heads of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Democrat from California, Dianne Feinstein, and as well as the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, both the intelligence chairs, Republican from Michigan, Mike Rogers. It was their only interview together since President Obama's important speech on Friday. Senator Feinstein, Chairman Rogers, welcome back. Good to have you both. So the future of spying, it seems to me, is very much like the present. Chairman Rogers, do you view this as a big victory?
Well, I thought the most important victory was the president standing up and saying, hey, the program did not have abuses. This wasn't sinister. It wasn't a rogue agency. It was legal and proper. Some of the suggestions on how to move forward I have some concerns with, but I thought it was really an important role for the president to play. I wish he'd have played it 7 months ago, but I was glad to hear it yesterday.
So Edward Snowden, whatever you think of him, he leaks these documents, he leaks the information about these programs, and Senator Feinstein, there's a big hue and cry and a big debate, but basically the president says that these programs are here to stay. And critics of the speech, as I've been reading them, seem to say very little will change. Barton Gellman writes about it in the Washington Post, and here's what he says. Obama placed restrictions on access to domestic phone records collected by the National Security Agency, but the changes he announced will allow it to continue or expand the collection of personal data from billions of people around the world, Americans and foreign citizens alike. It doesn't seem like a lot of privacy protection.
Well, I would disagree with Mr. Gellman. I think that what the president has said is that he wanted to maintain the capability of the program. That as Chairman Rogers said, it has not been abused or misused. and it is carried out by very strictly vetted and professional people. Now, what he said is, by March 28th, I'm asking the Attorney General to come back to me with some suggestions and probabilities of how the data might be stored by others than the government. And I think that's a very difficult thing, because the whole purpose of this program is to provide instantaneous information to be able to disrupt any plot that may be taking place. And, I think a lot of the privacy people perhaps don't understand that we still occupy the role of the great Satan. New bombs are being devised, new terrorists are emerging, new groups, actually a new level of viciousness. And I think we need to be prepared. I think we need to do it in a way that respects people's privacy rights. Let me make one other point. When you look at what companies collect, the government does not seem to be a major offender at all.
But isn't the difference, of course, Chairman, that it's only the government that can deprive you of your liberty? Google or Amazon, you still have to click to acquiesce in that, even though they have a lot of that personal information. The government seems to want total awareness, and that's where, even in the name of security, a lot of critics say, sorry, that is an invasion of privacy, and that is going overboard. And Edward Snowden himself, when he was interviewed in the Washington Post, he said the following about what he thinks is lax oversight. The issue was basically what entitled Snowden, now 30, to take on the responsibility of being the oversight. The whole question, who elected you, inverts the model, he said. They elected me, the overseers. He named the chairs of the Senate and House Intelligence Committee, both of you. Dianne Feinstein, he said, elected me when she asked softball questions in committee hearings, he said. Mike Rogers elected me when he kept these programs hidden. The FISA court elected me when they decided to legislate from the bench on things that were far beyond the mandate of what the court was ever intended to do. The system failed comprehensively, and each level of oversight, each level of responsibility that should have addressed this, abdicated their responsibility. So reformers have another chance. I'll start with you, Chairman Rogers. Sure. Will anything change?
Well, first of all, I couldn't disagree more. That's like having the janitor at a bank who figured out how to steal some money, deciding matters of high finance. This was a thief who we believe had some help, who stole information. The vast majority had nothing to do with privacy. Our Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines have been incredibly harmed by the data that he has taken with him, and we believe now is in the hands of nation states.
What help did he have? Who helped him, do you think?
Well, there were certain questions that we have to get answered where some of first of all, if it was a privacy concern he didn't look for information on the privacy side for Americans. He was stealing information that had to do with how we operate overseas to collect information to keep Americans safe. That begs a question. And some of the things that he did were beyond his technical capabilities. Raises more questions. How he arranged travel before he left, how he was ready to go. He had a go bag, if you will, and how he.
But how high level do you think?
Let me just say this. I believe there's a reason he ended up in the hands, the loving arms of an FSB agent in Moscow. I don't think that's a coincidence, number one. Number two, and let me just talk about this.
Do you think the Russians helped Ed Snowden?
I believe there's questions to be answered there. I don't think it was a gee whiz luck event that he ended up in Moscow under the handling of the FSB.
That's a significant development, if true.
Well, I said we have questions we have to answer, but as somebody who used to do investigations, some of the things we're finding we would call clues that certainly would indicate to me that he had some help and he stole things that had nothing to do with privacy. And if I just real quickly, the oversight that is conducted, that's what's the interesting thing about this. With all the disclosures, we find out, holy mackerel, the court's involved. Both the Senate and the House committees are involved. There was plenty of oversight of the programs, and it was very restrictive. Only 288 times that they even used the business records in 2012.
So, Senator Feinstein, is there any chance that some of your colleagues who disagree with you will be successful in shutting down the program, the bulk collection of this metadata?
I don't believe so. The president has very clearly said that he wants to keep the capability. He wants to look for other than the government holding the material. So I think we would agree with him. I know a dominant majority of everybody, virtually except 2 or 3 on the Senate Intelligence Committee, would agree with that. He wants to make some changes in the FISA court, that you have to have the approval of the court before you query, that the amicus concept involving a panel would come into being. But the important thing to me is the president very clearly said we need this capability to keep people safe. Now let me say one thing about Mr. Snowden. I heard him on television say that he went there with the intent to scrape our systems, that he obtained a scrape tool, and he began to scrape over, I believe, a 2-month period, as much as he could get a hold of. This isn't somebody who comes upon something and says, this isn't the right thing for the government to do. I want to go out and talk to people about it. He came there with the intent to take as much material down as he possibly could.
And do you think you agree with Chairman Rogers that he may have had help from the Russians?
He may well have. We don't know at this stage. But I think to glorify this act is really to set sort of a new level of dishonor. And this goes to where this metadata goes, because the NSA are professionals. They are limited in number to 22 who have access to the data. 2 of them are supervisors. They are vetted. They are carefully supervised. The data goes anywhere else. How do you provide that level of supervision?
Is it critical then to get to the bottom, and will you investigate who might have been involved and whether there was any link to the Russians?
Absolutely, and that investigation is ongoing.
Absolutely.
Sure. But you have to remember, Al-Qaeda has changed the way they communicate based on this. That puts our soldiers at risk in the field. That's a real dangerous consequence. Nation states have started to make changes that concern us greatly. We're going to have to rebuild whole aspects of operations from our Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines that will cost billions and billions of dollars because of the information he stole and gave, which we believe is now in the hands of nation states who are doing something with it. There's no honor in that.
All right, we'll leave it there. Senator Feinstein, thank you very much for being here. Chairman Rogers, thank you as well.
Thank you.
All right, so that was Dianne Feinstein on Meet the Press talking about the NSA program and trying to justify it. So let me just point out, first of all, Meet the Press, that's some fair and balanced journalism right there. You know, they had 2 people on the show arguing for the NSA and nobody on the show arguing against them except for Edward Snowden, and they're just reading from a piece of paper. I guess we know where they stand on this issue. You know, this is what you get when you have companies that are in charge of providing us our news, and you know, this is the garbage that they just regurgitate on channel after channel when they're telling us that you should trust the government, trust the NSA. You know, we're vetting our people in there. If they were really doing such a good job, how did Edward Snowden get in there? How did he continue doing what he was doing? In my opinion, Edward Snowden is a freaking hero. This man put his life on the line. He altered everything that he knows. He'll never be able to go back to his home. He'll never be able to see his family again. That right there, that's the definition of somebody who's a hero, a patriot. They sacrificed. Dan Sandini was on the show last night last week on the show, and he was talking about what he thinks it means to be a patriot. And one of his things that he was talking about was sacrifice. In my opinion, that's absolutely true. Edward Snowden has sacrificed everything he knows to get this information out, just so we can have a conversation, just so things could see the light of day. The government says that we should trust them, even though they lied. They've lied countless times, even about the existence of this program. It's even against the law for people to blow the whistle on these surveillance programs due to the National Defense Authorization Act and the Patriot Act. And we expect them to tell us the truth. We should trust them now, even though they've lied. Under oath. Why should we believe them? Our founding fathers knew that the federal government would grow and become out of control one day, because that's what governments do. They created the Bill of Rights to be used as a tool to rein in the government when they step over their bounds. As I said before, we have allowed the government to overstep time and time again, expecting our courts to rule against tyranny, to provide us that protection against tyranny, to actually determine if it's constitutional and protect us. But the courts have proven time and time again that they're not up to the task. Anyway, let's move on to the next story here. The Supreme Court also ruled recently on the First Amendment protection for bloggers and citizen journalists. This has been something I've been talking about for a while in regards to how the government's trying to come after bloggers and take away that protection, that First Amendment freedom of press, okay, that the Constitution has in it. And again, like I've said before, it's not just a constitutional right, it's a human right for us to keep our rulers in check by providing information to the public about what they're doing. According to the Associated Press, a federal appeals court ruled Friday that bloggers and the public have the same First Amendment protections as journalists when sued for defamation. So this isn't necessarily talking about the rights specifically, but it's talking about defamation, which provides credibility to the journalists, the citizen journalists, the bloggers. If the issue is of public concern, plaintiffs have to prove negligence in order to win damages, and they're referring to in civil court, where somebody sues you for basically slandering their name. The Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ordered a new trial in a defamation lawsuit brought by an Oregon bankruptcy trustee against a Montana blogger who wrote online that the court-appointed trustee criminally mishandled a bankruptcy case. The appeals court ruled that the trustee was not a public figure, which could have invoked an even higher standard of showing that the writer acted with malice. But the issue was of public concern, so the negligence standard applied. Greg Leslie of the Reporters Committee for the Freedom of Press said the ruling affirms what many of us have long argued. Standards set by a 1974 U.S. Supreme Court ruling, Gertz versus Robert Welch Incorporated, apply to everyone, not just journalists. It's not a special right to the news media, he said, so it's a good thing for bloggers and citizen journalists everywhere. Like I said, these companies, they're media companies, news companies. They're owned by someone. And those someones usually have some kind of political power or clout. They're usually affiliated with some kind of political agenda or party. And it usually and typically is a liberal, progressive, communist, socialist, Marxist agenda. And we've seen this time and time again. We look at NBC, we look at ABC, we look at the major news organizations that are out there, and those are the ones that are the most left-leaning. And when you look at the left-right paradigm, the left is all about big government, the government having 100% control over every action. You're talking about socialism, you're talking about communism, as far as fascism, the Hitler regime, where they censored your mail going out. They controlled everything. They imposed curfews. This is what the left would love to have. That's that kind of society. When they talk about a utopian society, to them, that's utopian. They have full control. Everyone can just be mindless drones, spoon-fed by the government, on the government's teat, it just not working, everybody on the government dime and everybody uneducated because, it behooves them to keep us dumb, because if we start thinking for ourselves, then maybe we could realize, hey, we don't need the government, and we need to get these people on as much, they need us to get on as much government programs and subsidies as possible so they have full control. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, welfare, food stamps, all that, they want you on it. They want you on all of them if they can. They want you on every single program that they can get you on, because then you're more inclined to vote for them. Anyway, that's my thought on the whole news media thing. We cannot allow the government to get this big. And as far as the left-right paradigm, like I was saying, the right side, the extreme, and there's extremes on every side. Like that's the extreme left, and the extreme right is anarchy, no government. And I don't want no government. I think the government is important. I think government does function for particular reasons, and they do have an importance. However, I'm for small government and extremely small federal government. I think the federal government should stay out of the way of the states. The states should run their own state. They have their own sovereignty. They have their own laws. And as long as the states aren't violating the Constitution, the federal government should have absolutely nothing to do with the laws of the land. Federal government, in my opinion, should only be there to increase the commerce between states, to encourage and increase that, and they should also be there to establish a mutual protection pact between the states so that they can work together. This ruling is good. The ruling that we just heard here is good for the First Amendment. It's good for citizen journalists, and it's good for bloggers. It's good that we have this protection. I was worried that at some point they're going to start taking it away and tell us who's the press, and you're going to have to apply for a press pass and a press license, and that falls to the whole thing of, if it's a right, why do we need the government to give us licenses to do it? If we have a right to do something, the government shouldn't license us and regulate it in any way, because it's our right. We have the right to do it uninfringed. We have the right to do it, period. So the government shouldn't be involved in that process. Anyway, at this point, we're going to go ahead and take another quick break, and we'll be back in about 1 minute 30.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, TOSHA, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. Okay, before we move back into what we were talking about as far as the Supreme Court rulings, I have a friend of mine here. He's sent me an email regarding how the rally went. He writes, "Hey Mac, the rally went well. There were a half a dozen or so police mingling about. Seen one taking down license plates. Seemed like a good turnout. It was his first rally. He heard there were more people last year. Some awesome people were there this year." And basically, that's how the event went. So I'm pretty excited that there was no incidents. There was that many people there. According to what I was looking at online, there should have been around 400 people or so that were going to attend. I don't know if that many people came, but I really wish that I could have been there for that. I'm bummed out. Like I said, I almost canceled the show today or played like a repeat episode today about it, but. I wanted to be here. I want to be consistent for you guys, and I want to make sure that I'm here every week doing this, and you guys can depend on me being here, and you don't have to wait 2 weeks to hear the next show. So, anyway, let's go ahead and move forward here, and we're going to try to get through the rest of this pretty quickly. We got about 17 minutes left in the show. Okay, so Supreme Court, they also made a ruling on marriage rights in Utah. According to USAtoday.com, on January 6, 2014, the Supreme Court put a stop to same-sex marriages in conservative Utah while the state appeals a federal district court's ruling that had legalized the unions. The justices acting on a petition sent to Justice Sonia Sotomayor ruled that gay marriages cannot continue during the appeals process. The case is pending before the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. U.S. District Judge Robert Shelby ruled December 20th that the state's ban on same-sex marriage violates gay and lesbian couples' constitutional rights. Since then, more than 900 same-sex couples in that state have been wed. The Supreme Court has also made recent rulings in December 2013 on gay marriage rights in Utah. This on other marriage rights in Utah. According to CBS News, a Utah judge struck down a key part of the state's anti-polygamy statute, clearing the way for cohabitation between multiple spouses. The decision came in a case brought in by Cody Brown and his 4 wives, Mary, Christine, Robin, and Janelle, the family stars on the TV reality series Sister Wives. They argued that the state's law violated their privacy. Judge Clark Waddups agreed. In his 91-page decision, the judge ruled that the law banning religious cohabitation violated the First and 14th Amendments. However, Waddups, who took nearly a year to make his decision, stopped short of striking down the state's bigamy law, which makes it illegal to have multiple marriage license. So I'm really curious what you guys have to say about what we've talked about as far as the Supreme Court rulings. Give us a call. The telephone number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that is 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at our brand new email address, talk@onthemoveshow.com, and give us your take on it. All right, as far as my opinion, this is all stemmed from the gay marriage debate. And I think that what you do in your bedroom, it's your business, and it should be your own business. As long as it's a mutually consenting adult relationship, I don't care what you do or how many people you do it with. That doesn't affect me, so I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned about that. And some people are worried that it's degrading society and all that. But you know what? I believe in voluntarism. I believe that if people choose to do this kind of stuff, it's going to happen whether or not the government is involved. Passing laws like that is not going to prevent gay people from having sex with each other, and it's not going to prevent multiple people being in the same house cohabitating like they're married. So then at this point we're arguing a piece of paper, okay? And I know a lot of you conservatives out there are going to disagree with me, but feel free to call in 619-924-0986. Try to convince me. Tell me why I'm wrong, please. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. So. I also think that the government has no place in marriage, and I don't think that they should be passing laws saying who can and can't be married. It's a religious ceremony, and I don't think that the government has any place in religion whatsoever. I predict that at some point in the future, people will be able to marry anyone they want and as many people as they want as well. With that said, I can also see how allowing anyone to get married to anyone that they want will have unintended effects. What if people start getting married in order to avoid paying estate tax? You don't have to pay estate tax if you're married. All the property goes to your spouse. Should the government allow 2 brothers to get married? If they're allowing the polygamists to get married, if they're allowing gay people to get married, why wouldn't they allow 2 brothers to get married? That's a mutually exclusive relationship. That's a relationship that they're entering into voluntarily. So why wouldn't they allow that? Well, what about an entire family? What if an entire family got married to one another? What about an entire community? Do you see where I'm going with this? It just goes. And at that point, it starts having unintended side effects, unintended things that maybe you weren't thinking about. So what do I think in regards to that? I think, yes, the government should not have a place in marriage, and they certainly should never play the moral authority. I don't think that our founding fathers intended for the government to have this much influence in our lives, and I think we've grown accustomed to having the government tell us what we can and can't do. It's become normal for us to have the government prohibit us from doing things, even though we're not hurting anyone. I think some people actually crave this authoritarianism. As far as the estate tax, why are we paying an estate tax on money that we have already paid for with the income tax? We've already been taxed on that money. Now you're taxing it again? The government has proven time and time again that they mismanage our tax dollars. With that in mind, why would we keep allowing them more opportunities to receive more money to waste? I say let's abolish the estate tax. The government has no right to double dip into your bank accounts anyway. In my opinion, this has to be one of the sleaziest taxes that anyone could have ever come up with. And I'd like to do some research on it and find out where this even came from, because in my opinion, this is messed up. Not only are they taking from you on what you've already paid a tax on that money, you already paid once for it, but it's stealing from your family after they just went through a tragedy of losing a loved one. I can't think of anything more low than that, period. So we have another quick topic that I'd like to mention here in the last few minutes of the show. I recently have discovered, I was watching The Blaze, Glenn Beck, and they were talking about how Hitler's Mein Kampf is rising to the top of the bestseller list. It's actually the second and the third place on Amazon top sellers. And I believe it's a public domain, so it's free. So one thing that they were talking about, and it was actually speculated by some academics, is that, well, perhaps there's some renewed academic interest in the subject. Really? Renewed academic interest? Since 1945, and we just now see it rising to the top of the bestseller list. Is that the only reason you think? That's it? Just academic interest. Maybe people were ashamed of doing it, and now they're putting it on their Kindles or something. They don't have to go to the store and pick it up, and people don't see them. Maybe people are just curious. That's what you think is going on? Okay. Well, let's look around. Let's open our eyes. Let's see what's going on in the world. We see authoritarianism from an ever-expanding government, creating things like Obamacare, telling us how to live our lives, influencing every aspect of our life. We have NSA spying that's basically invading our privacy like Hitler did back when he was reading our mail and censoring us and putting us in concentration camps. This is why people are interested. They see the writing on the wall. People are either trying to research what's to come because they're looking and they're comparing what Obama is doing and what Hitler did, and they see the similarities. So they're trying to prepare for what's to come, or they're studying the playbook to see how it was done. They're socialists, they're communists, they're fascists. They're all learning from what Mein Kampf says, what Hitler wrote, and that's why, in my opinion, this is rising to the top seller list. I think that there is a lot of people out there that actually support this. We're seeing a rise in neo-Nazism. We're seeing a lot of hate, and it's just I think it's coming to a head. And I think that's why Hitler's Mein Kampf is rising to the top of the bestseller list. I think you're kind of kidding yourself if you believe that the only reason why it's there is just renewed academic interest. I mean, it's been since 1945 that the Second World War was over, and just now people would actually care about what's going on. I disagree. Anyway, at this point, we're going to go ahead and enter into the listener challenge. Every week, I issue you guys a challenge, and here we go for this week's.
I challenge you to a duel. Did you hear that? Sounds like it's time for a challenge. Listener challenge. Listener challenge. Listener challenge. Listener challenge.
All right, in this week's listener challenge, your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to write to your congressmen and women and tell them to oppose the NSA spy program. Let them know that their job depends on their opposition to this unconstitutional program. Tell them that you want them to write back with their position on the matter. When and if they do write back, I would love it if you would do two things with that email. Firstly, I would like you to post it on your Facebook page. All right, I want all of your friends to see what's going on, and I'd also like you to post it on our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. On the Move Show. So, after you make those two posts, I would secondly like you to call in next week and share your story. If there's anything that happened that was out of the ordinary, or if there's just something that you'd like to tell us about what happened, give us a call. The number is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. So, this would be really interesting. I think it'd be really nice to see what kind of experiences you guys get with your congressmen and women. And this will actually put them in a position where they have to state on the record where they stand, and then we'll put all that information out there for everyone to see. And see what they're saying, see what excuses that they're using to justify this program. I have here an email from a listener that said, "You said what I think. The government needs to bug out of our lives." I couldn't agree with you more. All right, at this point, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to wrap up the show with the last 5 minutes or so.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
All right, we're back. So, if you are feeling like I'm feeling, and you're tired of the government trying to influence every aspect of your life, I want you guys to get mad about it. I want you guys to not just let this go. I want you to first get involved. I want you to do everything in your power to make things happen. You know, try to actually influence the situation and create change. But most importantly, I want you to get mad.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value. So, I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. I want you to get up right now. Get up, go to your windows, open them, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. Things have got to change.
How many stations did this go
You've got to get mad. You've got to say,
I know it goes to Louisville and Atlanta.
I'm not going to take this anymore. Then we'll figure out what to do about the depression and the inflation and the oil crisis. But first, get up out of your chair, open the window, stick your head out and yell, and say, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Who are you talking to, sir?
CGG Atlanta.
Are they yelling in Atlanta, sir?
Are they yelling in Atlanta, Ted? But first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. Get up, get up. Stick your head out the window, open it, and stick your head out and keep yelling and yell, I'm as mad as hell, I'm not going to take this anymore. Just get up from your chairs right now. Go to the window.
Where are you going? I don't want to see anybody's yelling.
Open it and stick your head out and yell and keep yelling. I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take this anymore.
I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore.
I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore.
I'm mad as hell.
If you're mad as hell, and you don't want to take it anymore, you're the only one that can make change. You're the only one that can be your advocate. No one else will do it for you. That's today's show. I want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in week after week. We really appreciate your continued support. Don't forget to check us out at onthemoveshow.com, here at blogtalkradio.com/onthemoveshow, facebook.com/onthemoveshow, youtube.com/onthemoveshow, and twitter.com/onthemoveshow. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, get on the move.